Hello, welcome back. My name is Evelyn Preciado, also known as Is Preciado. And as promised, this is the second episode of season 2 with Healing with Eve. And today I wanted to dive into the things that I have learned in regards to the inner child, the inner teen. This particular topic and this particular set of information has just taken me for a storm. As you all know, I've been healing, I've been sharing my healing, I've been documenting a lot of the things that I have discovered and found throughout this journey of mine for quite some time now. One of the things that I realized that I needed to really look into, the more I read and the more information I started to uncover, I realized that I had not taken a look at a part of me that really is still very near and dear, and it's still very existent. I hadn't taken a look at a part of me that still exists, which to some that can be controversial. To some it's like, what do you mean? You grew up, you're no longer a child. But to some that really, if you can take a moment to ponder with me, or if you've already heard about the inner child or the inner teen, we realize that our inner child, or that little child that we once were, is still a part of who we are. That little child that we once were didn't pack its bags and leave. It grew up, it evolved, you became a teenager, you became an adult, you made decisions, you started to fail, you started to have successes, you started to have all of these things happening to you as an adult, and then that just takes off, and then we are an adult for a large part of our lives, hopefully. However, that particular part, that inner child part, has been the part of me that I can tell you has been such a beautiful part of the healing process for me. I have come across a lot of beautiful books, a lot of beautiful meditations, a lot of beautiful processes that help you sit with your inner child and really see what part of it is feeling neglected, what part of your inner child has fears that have still followed you into your adult life. A lot of our fears that we have in our adult life, and a lot of the things that give us a hard time in our adult life, are most of the time linked to something in our childhood. Even if it was something as minuscule as, somebody, was mean to you, or you perceived somebody being mean to you when you were young, and now you have some wound in regards to that. Or it could be severe things. There's a lot of people that have had severe things happen in their childhood, and they proceed to live adult lives, teenage lives, and never at all looking back at that part of them that needs to be consoled. A lot of us, most of us, had families, parents that were busy, that were hardworking, that are still hardworking, that unfortunately didn't have the time to really sit with us and really guide us, and really maybe, take the opportunity to get to know us even at a deep level when we were little. Or as a teenager, for some of us, I have found that a lot of my things trickle back to my teenage years, and how I really needed somebody to talk to, or I really needed things explained to me, or I experienced forms of what some may call abandonment, even though I grew up in a home with both of my parents in the building. And those are things that to some may be controversial. To some people it's like, don't look at it, and just completely just forgive people, and yes, forgive, compassion, empathy, and that's gonna always be my theme. But I will always vouch for validating what people actually feel and the truth of what really happened, because I think that it's within that truth that we truly can love and accept others with compassion, including yourself. So this is a PSA for all of you who have yet to sit with your inner child, or who have yet to do an inner child meditation, or have even pondered about what is this inner child notion. I encourage you to look into it, to sit with your inner child, to really try and understand what parts of you in your adult life now need to still be addressed because of that inner child. And then you'll find that within that, you will let go of a lot of the things that you haven't been able to let go of, or a lot of the hardships, failures, anxieties, things that have been giving you a hard time. Even in your adult life, you'll learn to realize that there is a link there, and that kind of like a puzzle that you're creating, like a jigsaw puzzle, and you're finding the pieces. To me, I have realized that the inner child, inner teen component has been a very crucial piece in my healing journey. And I can sit here and say so many amazing things about this, and I hope that you're encouraged. I hope that more than anything, I encourage some of you to wonder, to really get curious about those parts of you that need a hug, about those parts of you that need somebody to talk to, that needed somebody to talk to, those parts of you that have bonded with other adults through amorous relationships or friendships from a place of wound because of your wounded inner child or wounded inner teen, because these things do end up affecting the way we end up meshing with other people, whether it's amorous or friends or, you know, colleagues, whatever it may be. A lot of these things, if they go unaddressed, do become a part of our personality, and they do become a part of and it does become a part of the reasons why some of us do struggle. And by some of us, I mean, I'm including myself in there, because I definitely feel like I did struggle, and I did have a hard time dealing with failure. I had a hard time dealing with, connected to the failure, making mistakes. I had a hard time with perfectionism. I have a hard time with things like procrastination. I have a hard time with you know, confidence, self-love, you know, finding that part of me that feels enough. And I didn't know why I always felt like that. And I was able to trace that to parts of my inner child, parts of my inner teen. And I did this beautiful meditation that I had found in one of my books that I was reading. And this book in particular is focused on femininity. But in order for me to even look into that, and we will talk about femininity in another episode, but as I started to dive into the femininity, she recommended in the very first chapters that I sit with my inner child. And there was this meditation, and I definitely want to take some time to mention it, so that if any of you are interested, I can always send you the instructions. But from what I remember, it was something as basic as, you know, go into a place that's quiet, sit there, close your eyes, and imagine that your little version of you, or your teen version of you, whichever version you want to tackle first. I recommend doing it with both separately. Imagine that that version of you is sitting next to you. And then use your imagination, friends. I know we all have it, so please, I encourage you to use your imagination. Sit with that little part of you and ask it, what do you need? How can I help you? How can I be there for you? Because the most beautiful thing that I have learned in regards to the inner child, in regards to the inner version of ourselves, is that now that we're an adult, we get to be the parent to that part of ourselves that needed a little hug, that needed some reassurance, that needed a little bit more explaining, a little bit more understanding. So that's part of the meditation, where you get to sort of introduce your adult self to your inner self, your inner child self, and let it know that you got its back now, that you are able to hold its hand now, that you can hug them now, that you can give them that self-love, that you can give them the encouragement, that you can be their biggest fan. It's like, I am your biggest fan now. And I'm telling you, when I did this, I was like crying like a baby, because to me, it was such a sensitive part of me, and I didn't even realize that it was such a sensitive part of me. And this doesn't mean at all that, to me, I think some people, to digress, I think some people don't like to dive into this stuff, because I think that a part of them feels that they are dishonoring their parents or their family by looking into a part of them that actually may be in pain. But I think, on the contrary, for me, This has helped me have a better relationship with my parents, my mother, the part of me that maybe at some point resented her, was a little rebellious against her because of the fact that I felt like I needed these things and I was still expecting her to give that to me. And we will talk a lot more about the mother wound in another episode as well, but that's something that I also discovered through this trajectory, that there is a little bit of a mother wound there that I hold, that I held, because I can happily say that I am now in a place where my mom and I have a decent relationship, and I can feel a connection to her, and I can feel compassion and love and forgiveness and understanding. And I think that she as well, because I've been able to communicate better in regards to my healing with her, and she's been able to sort of be like, oh, that's what that was, and having conversations with her that are a little bit more geared towards love and understanding. And I want to make sure that for those who want to dive into this, that it's okay to validate what you felt. That just because you felt something doesn't mean that it makes you a bad son or daughter. That you could look into your wounds and realistically say, you know what, my mom was very busy and I did need some time. I did need an extra hug, or I did need a little bit more explanation, or I did have a lot of fears and there was nobody around to really help me overcome them, or I did need a little bit of nudging, or a little bit of more like somebody believing in me a little bit more so that I could have, soared, but it's okay, to have that, to know that, and still love your mom and dad. Like it's okay to live in the gray. There is no like, it has to be this way or it has to be this way. Like, no, I'm going to avoid my pain because I have to love my mom and dad for the image that I have of them. Like that to me doesn't correlate. Like, it's like, hey, you can have both. You can address your pain and you can also love your mom and dad. You can address your pain and you can still respect your mom and dad. Just because you're doing one doesn't mean that you're negating the other. And I think that there's a lot of people who have that misconception. And this is why, in my opinion, I think a lot of people avoid actually healing or looking at those pains, because then they have to look at a part of themselves that's so fragile and that is so delicate, a part of themselves that at the core, they know the truth of this pain, but they don't want to open that little box of where they've stored all their sad memories. It's just like, let me just keep it here because I need to highly respect my mom for this image that I have of her, instead of realizing that a lot of us love our parents for some fabricated version that our psyche has created in order for us to honor them. But how dope to heal your inner child enough to be able to look at your mom and dad with real, true compassion, admiration, forgiveness, empathy for real. Because you're able to realize that they simply did the best that they can do. And now that you have the context of being an adult, you're able to look at yourself from another perspective, which allows you to look at them from another perspective, which I'm telling you, friends, that when you're doing this work, you're going to feel an immense love for your mom and dad. It's just inevitable. And then it's going to help you understand that your mom and dad also have an inner child. And then you're going to be like, oh my God, because now you're going to envision this inner child, this little version of your mom and dad that is probably also so sad about something, that is probably also, in a little box, because they also had to be raised in homes that they had to have immense admiration for the people who raised them, and never felt compelled to look in this little box to actually look at the parts of them that needed a Band-Aid. Because it was like, it's okay, I got it. It's okay, I don't want to look at it. And I don't want to dishonor my mom and dad. So I want to just like, it's okay, I love them for who they are, and let me hide. And this is why a lot of our dads, have drinking issues. This is why a lot of our moms have emotional issues. This is why a lot of our parents, unfortunately, don't know how to communicate or bond. Why? Because of their inner child. The neglect is there and it's evident. So I'm inviting you and I'm encouraging you to definitely look into it. Definitely feel empowered to be able to look at those parts of you that you refuse to look at. And I can assure you that you're in for some amazing, amazing changes in your life once you do. And I want to end with that. And I hope to, please, if you have anything to add in regards to this topic, I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about it. If any of you already know about the inner child and you have some really cool meditations, also share them. I'm excited to continue to dive into it. This is something that for me is a lifelong journey. I'm still looking at the inner child to this day. It's not something that you just do once. It's going to be a forever practice. Hello. So thank you. I want to thank all of you who listened to the last episode. And until next time, bye-bye.